Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and tonight I'm joined by this nerd.
Marcus Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Good man, a little hot and sweaty. The temperature's been rising.
I definitely feel that over here. There's been a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm an old
So,
fat guy that doesn't do well in the heat, so and and my muggle job is like it's actually like it's pretty much climate controlled, so I wasn't expecting the heat when I came outside. Not that it's too crazy, but my car said 90 degrees, and I'm like, yeah, I could do with a little bit cooler.
yeah, I can definitely understand that. I try to stay a little indoors myself, but I try to get out there every now and again. Today it just seems to be pretty much hot and muggy.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? So what are we talking about tonight?
So this was an idea that I came up with based off of some of the more recent movies or shows that I've been watching. We're going to talk about strange worlds. When with all of the spell jamming or planar travel or just some weird worlds, there's a whole lot that you can do with D&D and really get into some odd stuff.
But you mean it in kind of a specific way, right?
So the idea was brought on by almost like back to back. I watched, Ant-Man Quantumania, and then I wound up watching Strange World, both of which was on Disney Plus, and both of them, kind of take the heroes and go to some place that everything is different. All of your surroundings are vastly different than what you're used to, and that's something that D&D kind of does well. I mean, you can go to the elemental planes, and whether you're in fire or water, a lot of things that are going to be there are going to be built based on what element you're in, and therefore are not going to be like the creatures you see on the prime material plane. So like that kind of stuff is like, all right, well, how can I do more with this? How can I possibly create some of my own demi planes or planes of existence? Or hey, I want to spell jam and go to strange new worlds and come up with something that is vastly different than what you would encounter on the prime.
Now, I took it because I knew your inspiration was the strange world and quantumanium, the quantum realm, as being kind of like really like weird and trippy kind of settings where like
Mm-hmm.
the normal rules of physics don't necessarily apply. Not only are there different creatures just because they've made different adaptations to this world, but they're just also really strange creatures as well. And I mean, you could like even go kind of OG with Alice in Wonderland, right? That's like one of the originals. D&D itself has a couple realms that I think fall very nicely right into what you're talking about without you having to
Mm-hmm.
do anything really. You've got the
I would
Feywild,
say
the most
that was going
obvious.
to be my first. That was going to be my first thing, and I would honestly feel that Alice in Wonderland is absolutely Feywild.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely fits along with that. And the Shadow Dark. Wait a minute, what is it?
Shadowfell.
Shadowfell. That's what I was looking for. I was like putting together like three different things. I'm not like that's not it. None of that's right. And I feel like the
Underdark
Shadowfell.
Shadowfell.
I feel like the Shadowfell is the same thing, but in kind of like a creepier, different direction.
Yeah, I would say where the Feywild winds up ramping up colors, the Shadowfell dials it down. So like they're a little bit of polar opposites, in that regards.
But playing a game like D&D really gives you the opportunity to really put this, put a lot of this stuff and turn it on its head. And frankly, for the dungeon master, it doesn't necessarily always require a whole lot of work, right? Like maybe in this world, the fish swim through the air and the birds fly through the water, right? It doesn't really change anything. Just
Mm-hmm.
aesthetically, it's different when a school of fish kind of like swim by you and you're walking on land, or you're in a boat and the next thing you know, it's like like almost like the salmon spawning, but instead of salmon, they're like sparrows or something. or
I
geese.
mean that that would be pretty darn bizarre if you're not used to something like that. But for the locals, like that's the norm. Like, how could you have it any different? What do you mean fish go in water? They don't do that. Like,
That's just ludicrous. As a matter of fact, it actually came up in one of our more recent games. Not this month's game is Under the Dome, but the previous one. Um, you guys got caught on a cast storm, and I just found like a kooky, random cast magic effect table or magical effect table on the internet, and one of them was like a swarm of fish appear. And so I just grabbed the swarm of quippers and been like, they're not in any water, but you know what? We don't need no
they fly.
stinking water. Yeah, they're just flying fish that are trying to take a bite out of the PCs. That's all.
And like, I don't want to go into the movies, um, but like there's aspects of those movies, and if you haven't watched them, highly recommend you check them out. You don't necessarily need to have watched the other Ant-Man movies to kind of follow anything with Quantumania, but each of them does showcase putting your stars, if you will, in an absolutely alien situation. And um, you could go in a direction, and there hasn't been anything that I've seen in recent editions, but years ago there was a thing called Hollow World, where you had that the outer part of the planet, but then inside there was a whole other atmosphere, a whole other place that you could wind up exploring, that was like basically at the core of the world. And I know Dave's not a big fan of it, but I've got friends that like absolutely love Hollow World concepts, because like a lot of times they're a lot more primitive. Like they're geared more towards like your dinosaurs and that kind of stuff. But you could have anything from any civilization kind of being down there by like having this place be like the museum where everything is. So like nothing ever truly goes away. Like so like you can have a lot of fun with that kind of concept by taking your characters down down deeper than they've ever gone and expose them to a whole new place.
I feel like the third edition um, manual of the planes would still be really useful. Like there's a lot of good information in there that's not necessarily just game mechanics.
Yeah, there's a lot of lore, a lot of aspects you can play with in there. I know where mine is. I specifically, but I recently pulled out a lot of my older books, so I know I can go grab that with little difficulty.
Yeah, I think you can like a lot of those books too. You can get like on the DM's Guild or whatever, get the PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like it had rules in there that were probably I would say a little less system agnostic, so it wouldn't really matter, if you're what edition you're playing for uh D&D, whether it's first edition or 5e or whatever, just weird things like, does this, what is the gravity like in this world, right? Because the astral plane and the other planes are a little bit like that as well, right? Where you can kind of like move through them, even though in some ways where you're kind of like flying. I think in the book they called it like subject. So what is it? Subjectional subject. Subjectional gravity or something like that, where you could just like basically fly anyway because you could control gravity, and how it would pull your character, or you could do
That
things.
is
Or I was gonna say you could do something different, and like maybe in the a particular strange world, like the gravity, all gravity is reversed. The trees are able to stay where they are because they're rooted in the ground. Maybe a lot of the creatures in that world have an adaptation where their feet like grip the ground, and they actually have to hold on or they'll fall.
wow. That's an interesting concept to have. Like everything being upside down. All hair is just kind of up all the time unless you
Yeah.
stylize it, to do something different.
That is the
The
style. Also, like Discworld is kind of different too. It's kind of based off of some different mythologies, where it's the elephants, the tortoise on the elephant's back, and that's kind of the world. But like
Mhm.
in Discworld, like the oceans, if you sail too far, like you go over the
Fall off.
edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have like nets and stuff. Actually, I recently had started trying to get into that, and I picked up a bunch of them on Audible. And I really want to like it, but I don't. I feel guilty. I feel like my nerd cards, like someone's gonna come and take my nerd card away because I'm
How?
just not digging it.
Not, I mean, not every author that is, got a lot of acclaim is going to be liked by every single, nerd that's out there. I mean, there is stuff that, lots of people adore that I'm like, all right, I just couldn't get through it or couldn't get into it. I mean, I read The Lord of the Rings, but it was worth getting through it. And like, all right,
Uh,
I really enjoyed The Hobbit, but, the trilogy was like, all right, it's not really there. I adore the movies. I love Tolkien for being the foundation of this great hobby for us, uh, but I don't have the same fascination. Where I have a friend who loves Lord of the Rings so much that he has to read the core trilogy once a year. Like that's his great love.
did
I'm like,
you
all
by
right,
chance start reading other novels first?
yes.
See, the first books that I read were The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and I feel like I would be the same way as you had I done it the other way around.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I had gone through probably dozens of other novels first because I didn't start picking up Tolkien until I was in college. And by that point in time, I had already gone through some of the Drizzt stuff, some of the Dark Sun stuff. I had read all of the crap. What was the Piers Anthony, the Xanth novels.
yeah.
Um, and that's where I started. Literally the first
That
book that got
that is
me.
actually a really good tie-in to the Strange Worlds as well.
And, indeed, Xanth is absolutely a ridiculous world, built on comedy and puns, lots of fun and ridiculous things that can happen with every character having their own unique magical talent. Uh, but the first novel that I wound up reading was called The Source of Magic. It's actually book two in the Xanth series, and I'm like, dude, it's got magic in the title. There's the guy with a sword on the cover. There's a dragon. How could this be anything but fantastic? Literally doing the I'm going to judge a book by its cover,
Uh,
and it took me quite a while to get into it. Once I started, it just didn't stop. For decades.
I mean, and that's like good fodder too. If you're just looking for that, ridiculous, off the wall, Alice in Wonderland kind of feel, where you just want to put strange things into your campaign world, like a tree that grows boots or swords or whatever. Uh, you know, and maybe just things work that different. Like food is hatched out of eggs from some lizard, where instead, but manufactured goods grow on trees.
Oh man, I got a cheeseburger egg. Who ordered the cheeseburger egg?
Like I in one of our games, like I actually did a lot of like world hopping in our first 5e game that I ran with you guys. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of pocket dimensions. Like you guys went to the Dragon Emperor realm, which there wasn't anything really too strange about that. It was just kind of like mostly dragonborn, and dragons happened to be there. But then like the Clockwork Kingdom was a bit more fantastical, where there were no living organic creatures there. It was just the Clockwork people, and matter of fact, they'd been kind of frozen in time. They had been kind of Tin Man, like all of them. And you,
They're kind of fascinated by biology at that point.
yeah, yeah. And then I also did an adventure which it was this well, it wasn't a one shot. It was part of the campaign, but it was like a side thing where you couldn't make the session. So I had the Goblin King come take you away, and the rest of the party had to
Yeah.
come rescue you. And it was right after David Bowie had passed away. Um,
Mhm.
so we kind of did it as like a little bit of a tribute session, but you know that Jareth was the Goblin King, and um, the Goblin Kingdom was more like those goblins are a lot more have more in common with Fae and fairies than like D&D goblins, and we went down that road. Um,
It was it was a lot of fun, hearing all of the tales and the stories, and it wound up like my character got affected by the transformation that wound up being stopped. So it was kind of amusing.
yeah. Park says, I think an easy way to do Bizarre World type setting is just make it a layer of the abyss since they're in infinite layers. Yeah, but I feel like by making it a layer of the abyss, that gives it a certain connotation that you may or may not want, right? Like it makes it kind of demonic in nature, which is definitely a way you could go where everything is kind of trippy and wonderlandish, but also trying to kill you. Would be a lot of fun, and it would definitely be kind of cool to do to your players in the sense that like you hit them with all this wondrous stuff and kind of draw them in, and it isn't immediate that they realize that everything is actually there trying to kill them, right? I mean, you don't want to actually like kill your players or their characters anyway. Maybe them depends on your players, but it would be kind of cool to kind of like go kind of work your way into that. You could also steal from things like Roger Rabbit. You know how there's a Toontown.
Oh yeah.
There's also a Toon RPG, right? So you could literally like switch them.
Oh, that would be a fantastic idea to basically remake characters into another rule set and play the ongoing story using different rule sets. And tune absolutely would be an obnoxious way to go, to be like, all right, you feel this change going over your character, almost like you've been stretched or squished or pulled or what have you, you know and then you leave it on that weird note. And then when they show up the next session, like, you just hand them these character sheets and be like, all right,
Their
this is your
characters
character for the evening.
re-envision. Yeah, there's a game that's kind of like that. So the Strange is kind like the concept is like you play the same character, but depending on what world you go to, they kind of get rewritten to work to make sense in that world, right?
Oh
Like if
wow.
if it's like a fantasy Conan style world, right? Then that's your characters they're gonna kind of be the same, but like I don't know the mechanics of it. I just know how the premise of the world's campaign. Um, and you know, once they go to that world, the characters kind of get rewritten to make sense there. If it was a sci-fi world, they get rewritten to make sense in that one. So there
All right,
is games that do that.
I'm gonna have to add that one onto my list of games to check out, because I was not aware that fits into the mentality. Because, like, to me, in just about every campaign that I run, there's always some kind of planar hopping, or demi plane that the characters wound up going to, because that's something where I feel like every once in a while I need a change. I want to do something different. And whether you're visiting the dragon realm or the beard dimension, you can go and see something that is vastly different than what the players are experiencing on the prime. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna have some fun. And if you are just whole cloth creating this demi plane, that's a great way to give your players some agency into what was being done. So, like, when I did the beard dimension with my untraditionally arcane game, the players each got a chance to like to add something, into what was a previously unknown realm. And I did it mainly because Jake was playing a beardomancer, and therefore it's like, all right, let's go to the place where the source of your power is.
Yeah, that's true too. So we kind of did, we've kind of slowly been working on our own strange world with the beardomancy stuff. I mean, we have three different products. We have beardomancy, bad hair day, and
Terrible ideas.
terrible ideas. Yeah,
I adore that name and the love that it holds.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what was kind of like your guiding principle when you decided to use the beard dimension in your game?
So the reason for doing it was solely
Did you just
because
stare in the mirror and look at your beard for inspiration?
no, like I wanted to do it because Jake was a was playing the beardomancer. So I'm like, all right, well, what kind of things am I going to have? So I basically made things kind of look and act like hair would. So the ground was, you know, far more flexible, than you would expect. So while it wasn't like your foot sinking into soil, but it did kind of give. And if there was any kind of breeze, like the plants that would be more like the trees were more like braids, like the
Hmm.
trunks were like hair all knotted together, varying shades of things and what have you. Um, and then I had players be able to insert different things into it. There were some challenges that they had to face, and they wound up meeting a beard dragon. And that obviously was inspired by the fact of, well, there is a lizard called a bearded dragon. So I'm like, all right, well, if there's a real life thing, I gotta make the fantasy equivalent. And it was a a glorious furry dragon with a massive mane of hair, under his chin.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it a beard dragon or a bearded dragon?
Well, it was a beard dragon that had a beard.
That's like beard inception.
But like, yeah, I understand that there's some people who find the thing that was kind of made as a joke that I've like tried to add a serious layer to.
Hmm.
But I don't feel that like every D&D game needs to be like, all right, we're 100% serious all the time and it is always life or death. And I'm like, nah, man, we're here to have fun. And sometimes silly antics are gonna be the key. So I'm here for
Yeah, well, I know, but sometimes too, like when you take that stuff and kind of interject it into a super serious game, right? So it gives some
it. Mm-hmm.
levity, even if it's just like a side jaunt, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
something happens, they get kind of Alice in Wonderland, and now they have to figure out how to get back to where they're from, or maybe they, part of their quest is going there to retrieve something and dealing with all the nonsense. And so also then like you figure out which of the characters are going to kind of become the straight men in the ongoing joke that session is going to be.
The great thing about when you take things into the absurd, you have the ability to, number one, test your players in a different way. You have the ability to be like, all right, well, this was the course of action. We've now taken a veer left or a veer right. So you can change the pace of the game. You can put in different types of encounters, different types of role playing, and see how the players are going to respond. If everything was like super tense before you left, and now all of a sudden you're someplace where things are absurd, as ridiculous as a beard dimension or a tune dimension or what have you, you can be like, all right, well, how is this going to affect what is going on with the character's mentality. Is it a break? Do you have to be like, oh, I need to have all of my wits about me because everything is so vastly different than what I've seen before? I don't have time to think about this other problem. I need to think about this problem. Or is it something where I was like, hey, dude, I'm totally into this. I'll worry about that other problem later. Like, so it can be a diversion or it can be a savior.
Yeah, and like even so, like even the diversion can be meaningful too, right? You can find
Mm-hmm.
ways to have character growth, and maybe like your super serious characters have a way, can get in, kind of in touch with a part of themselves that they deny, or because they're so like hardened by the world that they've kind of shut out, like perhaps like their inner child, if you would. um
Right.
and there's maybe what they need is like the dissonance of this kind of like silly world to help bring that out.
If you look at your typical TV dramas, and you look at the writing process, and obviously we don't have the scripts for these things, but the key over the course of an entire season of shows is for there to be ongoing plot. And when we as DMs and storytellers, write what's going to happen or what could possibly happen, we're not going to give them all the mystery all at once. There's going to be pieces segmented out. They need to, overcome things and have this character growth. But how often do you sit there, and I don't know if you're someone who talks to the TV like I am, but how often is it like you're going to talk to the characters of, hey, do the thing or say the thing, and yet it doesn't happen because there's always something else going on. So like you can use these moments as a break so that the situation can be or has to be avoided, or it can be a situation where like, all right, you change the scene so that they have to confront this situation or bring up what it is that's going on. So the change of scene has the capability of being a cool catalyst, as Dave says, to bring about, some inter-party role playing or to share information. I mean, we literally, had a game last night where, there was some conversation, and out of game, we know one of the NPCs is a much worse thing than what we think he is. Now, there's a Sasha that has basically tried to screw us over, and we're being very diplomatic with him, even though we know he's a bad guy. Well, we
Allegedly.
don't know he's a Sasha.
Yeah.
uh, but we had a player join the table for a couple of sessions. He wound up rolling an awesome check, knew exactly what this thing was, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna hold on to that." And like, everybody's like, literally everybody at the table like stopped and looked at this other player like, "You're really not gonna share that?" And no, it's like, "Oh my god!" And then he left the game.
Then he left the game.
Like, so like the character is literally gone, literally off world on a whole other ship, and we don't have a clue of how fiendish and evil this thing really and truly is. Like, regardless of what this guy is able to do, like we are nowhere near capable of taking this dude out just because the sheer badass of what a Sasha is. I'm like, I'm a sorcerer. I got nothing on this guy. I don't have high enough spells to affect him. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm screwed.
It's fine. Everything is fine. But fortunately for you guys, he likes you. But it's funny too how that got introduced into the campaign,
Absolutely. But
because
before we get into that, we're at
okay.
the halfway point here. So I'm gonna go through some admin things real quick. Certain you can see, above our heads, Easy Roller Dice. Clearly, this is sponsored by our wonderful friends over there. So down in the description below, you're going to be able to find a promo code and a link to be able to go and get access to that. Uh, you know, whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 million set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. That's a thing we always say. If you're watching this and you happen to enjoy Nerdarchy and you want to throw some love our way, you can always come support us on Patreon. We got some things in the works that sadly technology has been kicking our ass, but we think we got everything fixed. Fingers crossed that we got some things in the works that's going to kind of be a cool Patreon thing going forward. Uh, if you are not aware of the website and the cool page called Partners and Deals, you can always go there and check out any cool discounts and things that we have acquired for different businesses. And recently, I made contact with Geek Tank Games. So they've newly been added to that particular page. And you can follow the link to them there or head over to, just Geek Tank Games .com and use promo code Nerdarchy. You'll be able to get 20% off your order. And if you order 2 or more things, it's free shipping. So they produce 2D minis and 2D terrain. And they've got a ton of things in stock. And until they get their warehouse reduced, they're not going to be producing anything new. So, they're looking to, make some deals and move some product. So it's an affiliate link, so it helps us out as well as helps them. So go check it out. And if you like their stuff, Nerdarchy 20 is the way to let them know that we sent you there.
They need a Crazy Harry style commercial from back from like the 80s and 90s. Before I jump into the story, Ice Wolverine was asking about if we stream campaigns. Yeah, every Tuesday night, folks. If you're interested, 8:30 p.m. usually. Between campaigns, we usually take a couple of weeks off, but then we're back at it. And we've been running Zoo Mafia, we've been running Vast Grim, we've done Quest, we've done D&D, we've done Monte Cook Games, Cipher System. I mean, we've done several different versions of Cipher System actually.
Indeed.
What else? What else have we run over there? I feel like there's more, and I'm just not thinking of it.
Well, in that particular group, as I said, Vast Grim, Cipher System, Quest, D&D. We did the Zoo Mafia twice. We've run a couple of one-shotty kind of deals. We did Maximum Apocalypse a while ago.
Yeah, over the Troll Bridge.
Over the Troll Bridge.
Yeah, our friend Brian Cullen keeps making games, so we keep hey, do you want to come run that for us? So there's tons of live plays that we've done that were streamed. If you're offended by pronouns, you're definitely going to be offended. So there's that. But we don't stream or record our home games anymore. Mainly because our home games, to really have a good setup is hard to have it so that the audio quality is good and the video quality is good. And frankly, there's so many other folks that are just more technical savvy than we are and are doing a great job at it. We decided to keep our home games as our home games. And also, we decided that it was kind of a dick move to conscript our friends into being a part of Nerdarchy, whether they wanted to or not. So, sometimes we just use it to talk about those games on the streams or whatever. And then we actually have stream games where we play with folks that are coming there to be on the stream, which actually some of them have come from our home games. So there's that as well.
And if you do like other RPGs, when this is over, you can head over to since you're here on YouTube, you can head over to Erasmus Expedition. They're actually going to be running tonight. Could be currently going on, but I think it might be they're starting soon. They're actually going to be running a Zoo Mafia game there. So
yeah, he'll be the second person besides us to run games of Zoo Mafia.
Indeed.
That have been streamed and you can watch, because you can go to Unmade Gaming on YouTube and he's got definitely one. I don't know if the second one went up on YouTube yet or not. It was streamed on Twitch, but I think it was, and he's talking about doing a third one as well. So it's kind of cool to see the thing we made get out there. Dude, you don't even know, Ted doesn't even know this yet. But apparently someone put our quick start rules for Zoo Mafia up on Roll20. It was one of Mike's patrons. They made character sheets over there, And like, because he was telling me, he's like, yeah, they did some spreadsheet stuff because they wanted to have, better character sheets. Then because our original ones were just like, print and fill out style. We do have form fillable PDFs over on the website. You can go download them for free along with the quick start rules. But he's like, they've evolved since the last time I talked to you, and they put it up on Roll20, so you can find it over. I haven't even looked yet, but you can find it over there. I don't know if all the quick start rules are there, but I know like the character sheets and like the macros and stuff for using the dice are over there. But and then they
That's
link back to the website for the quick start rules as well, at the very least.
that's pretty awesome to see. See the word getting out there. I'd love to. Obviously I can't be watching Jeremy's game. I put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to check that out. Um, but that'll be my thing that I'll check out tomorrow morning. But there's all kinds of great games that are out there, and I love our Zoo Mafia. So hope to see that continues to spread and get some love.
I don't think it lets you put the link in the chat.
It, it,
I don't see it on
oh
my end
no,
because it's
did I
probably
lose?
because it's a link.
Did
Eh,
I mean, I used to be admin. Did something happen?
no, you should still be. I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna put it here, and maybe you can put it
Maybe I'll try.
in there.
Uh,
If not, you can, if it doesn't show up, you can always just go check out Erasmus Expedition, or just look on social media, or look on YouTube for Zoo Mafia, because there's only a handful of people who have done stuff besides us.
yeah, that's true. But and speaking of kind of like strange worlds, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Zoo Mafia fits kind of in there. Maybe not the fantastical like Alice in Wonderland, but it's definitely
But
like
it's
Funny Farm or any kind of a Secret Life of Pets type thing. Kind of fits in there.
and you know that in and of itself is absolutely a twist on the norm, and therefore it would make it strange.
It would. I mean, I did run a fantasy version of Zoo Mafia, kind of on the fly for some folks a few weeks back.
Indeed, and
So
that was a grand old time, and you didn't murder everybody.
no, well, two of the three did die. So
Park's comment, still waiting on the Pirates of the Aquarium offshoot.
yeah, it could happen. It could happen. We have a whole list of possible offshoots.
We've we've definitely put a lot of thought into different ways to play this game, uh, and it's a lot of fun, and
So,
I really enjoy the rule set that Dave came up with.
oh, you weren't there. So we did kind of like a fan meet, down in Florida. Like, oh my god, it'd been like, was that 2016, 2015 when we did the cruise?
2017
2017.
with the cruise. I don't remember whether that was 16 or 17.
It wasn't.
A little
I don't
while
think it
ago.
was 17. I don't think it was 17. It was before that. But Jose is one of the people that showed up for that, and it was me and Ryan, and we ran some games and ordered some pizza. Jose, I got to know, are you still in contact with that kid that looked like he was going to pee himself?
I have not. Why?
Oh, we're gonna have a guest. Ted Jr. He's gonna be popping in.
Yeah, sorry, my kids don't necessarily pay attention anymore.
You need to get a red
Yeah,
light
both.
above the door so that they know you're live.
They're supposed to acknowledge that the stage lights are up, and
Oh,
both of them have come down here and they're trying to talk, and I'm trying to look up when the Fantasy Cruise was.
maybe
Um,
maybe you just need a Nerf gun. So as soon as you see them walk down the steps, you just start shooting at them.
so according to what I'm seeing here, it was January 19th to the 23rd, 2017.
Oh, it was 2017. I don't know. It all
So
kind of blurs together.
2017 was like I felt like a really big a really big year for us because like we did the cruise, we went out to California, we went to Gen Con, I think, or you went to Gen Con that year. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think maybe we went to California like after that, like a couple years after that. It feels like, well, not a couple, maybe
Now,
the next year.
I'm pretty sure the trip to Geek and Sundry was 2017.
Yeah. Well, if their YouTube channel is up, we have a way of figuring this out. uh, that felt
So,
like walking into a strange world.
oh, that was a whole thing. But you don't necessarily have to like to just take the strange world being a concept from a visual perspective. You have the ability to kind of like, all right, well, what if I want to use this theme? And I've had a lot of work to do recently for my day job, and therefore I've been Netflixing a lot of things while I've been at work, and I wound up starting a show this past week that fits into this concept of strange world. The show is called Manifest. It's very much a modern day setting, and the whole concept is, um, almost like mirroring the MCU blip. But as opposed to people being snapped away and snapped back into place, there were 191 passengers on a plane that somehow this plane vanished for 5.5 years. So everybody thought they were dead, and they've now come back, and they're trying to like pick up their lives. But because they were on this plane that vanished for 5.5 years, some other strange things have started to occur. And you could kind of take some of these odd anomalies and odd things that are happening and kind of like mix them in and use a mixture of your player characters and your NPCs to kind of mirror some of this effect. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like mimicking this 5 year blip. Maybe a chaos storm happened in your area, and now certain people who were within proximity have now been affected by this. And, you know, if you watch the show, like they feel like they're connected and they'll hear voices or see visions and almost like, hey, the DM is guiding you in a direction. And you get these kind of aspects of, where the story could possibly go should you try to deal with it. But you've got a player agency. So if you don't want to listen, there could be consequences or fun things or, whatever. But it's a really fun show. I think I'm like 13, 14 episodes deep at this point in time, and I'm enjoying it.
I think my wife got into that show, dude, and I think it just ends, man.
It just ends.
It just ends. Like I don't know that it gets finished.
I mean, well, how deep the rabbit hole goes, but a lot of these things, that you wind up watching, like, all right, maybe not a ton of people got into it, so the show doesn't get aired for a second season, and if they don't solve everything for the first, then yeah, a lot of times you are going to be left hanging. But for what it's worth, what I've watched, I've enjoyed, and maybe I won't get an answer through watching it, but that's okay. Not all of life's mysteries are going to be solved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you were thinking about this topic, did you have anything specific, like maybe that you want to do in a game? Will any of this make its way into your D&D in a castle?
So I am still mad prepping for my D&D in a castle. I'm coming up with some options, and based off of what kind of you know character responses and player goals will
Uh,
determine what kind of things I
I
wind
was
up
just, I guess I
choosing to
was just
use.
wondering if any of this like is inspired your content going into that project.
I Nothing as of yet, but like I am planning to bring some of the you know the TED creations that I have here to the castle so that I can do some of those fun things that I know my players at home like love seeing. Some of my builds, for lack of a better thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, so if I've got some fun, weird stuff, so like I might pull some of those things out. Um, but like I said, I'm planning to bring a whole bunch of stuff and then see what happens.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm actually going to be running, the campaign setting that I had created for Open Legend. So it's not really. I don't think it falls into the Strange Worlds per se. But
Mhm.
it's definitely it's a little bit different than the standard D&D fare that we typically
Well,
do.
I would feel like the surface would kind of fall into the strange world because it's bizarre based on my recollection of that game from many years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it does have a lot of weird stuff going on and unexplained like mysteries. Um, I mean, the whole surface world is basically a unexplained mystery.
And if you've got a eldritch horror type scenario of you know bad guys, well, that means you could certainly have some evilly kind of things that you know could warp and change reality, and therefore you could have some weird stuff going on if you wanted.
But well, and you know what? I might just put some of that in there because why not? Um, especially with like so much inspiration that we've been taking recently from different things. Do you have like any ideas for a campaign you would like to run in that genre, or do you feel like you'd rather do it as like more like one shots or just something to interject or shake things up for your games?
So I always love the idea of having these things that you can interject, because then number one, you can put all the weird ideas you want, but then you can also have players that can interject some ideas. But then once that's over and they've left, you don't have to kind of deal with any wacky idea that might be outside of what you really want to do for any long-standing thing. But I mean, I've taken these one-shot kind of deals where players have, or characters have gone into like block world, and I literally had like Lego pieces and what have you, and everything that was there like was kind of like inspired by Minecraft. Uh, but like the idea of something being curved didn't exist. Like there was no
Mm.
round things. Everything was blockish, and the player characters were an absolute anomaly to that world. On the website, I've written an article talking about playing in a two-dimensional world and how that might greatly affect combat if you like can't get around people. The concept of there only being those two dimensions and you can't move into the third, kind of showcasing all of like your flat minis, whether you're talking about the pawns or whether you're talking about the acrylic minis or any of the number of different options that are out there, like the stuff from Geek Tank. You can do all of these weird things and really change the scope of what the game looks like tactically if you can't, there's no flight, there's no digging, there's no above or below like you have this way, and that's it.
All the world is a side scroller.
Yes.
Oh my
Uh,
god!
you
You
know,
know what? If you go that route, you have endless fodder for ideas. Just go back to all the like old Nintendo games and the NES, when back in the day when that's all we had was side scrollers like Ghosts and Goblins and Contra, uh, Alter Beast.
yeah, and there's plenty of those kind of games out there, and like nowadays, like if you express any video game interest, like you can watch, through Facebook or YouTube, you can watch people play these games, and just kind of like see what it looks like. Or heck, there's like full length videos where somebody is like sitting and playing through and beating the game, so you can see all the whole story all at once, and kind of figure out what you want to do with it. uh, but like, I wouldn't have a problem if I were to approach this scenario and do a Strange World or a Quantum Mania style campaign. Like, you could run that as a Spelljammer game. You could run that as a Vast Grim game. You could run that as a Hollow World kind of game, or like the whole thing could be strange, and you could then incorporate, well, what other kind of strange mechanic? So what if you had the characters themselves had like an ever-changing dimensional anchor, and they were linked together, but every so often, regardless of what's going on, maybe as a per session deal or what have you, you were just brought somewhere else, and every single session you have to figure out where the frick you are, and what kind of horrors and dangers you have, or what kind of friends or allies you might be able to make. So, like, whether it's survival or whether it's making
No, no,
connections,
no. I
whether it's
figured
trying
it
to
out. The game stat is where the frick are you?
um but like, through doing all of this, you have to figure out you know what is wrong with you guys. How do you fix this moving anchor and get back to where you need to go? Like, I could come up with loads of different concepts like this, of like how you can go to weird places and keep kind of changing things, and have a ton of fun with it.
Yeah. GM, I would like to make a where the frick am I check. What stat do you use for
Huh.
that? That's the where the frick are you stat. All right. Well, I was going to say, like, do you have any of these plans for the next time you offer up a campaign ideas? Except for you're currently not running games. Um,
I mean, I'm prepping for D&D in a castle, and I've got my ongoing kids game. But at the moment, beyond that,
you're on hiatus.
I'm on a little bit of a break. I get to kind of like stretch my legs a bit, let somebody else run the show for a bit, and I'm kind of happy with that. I'm gonna allow my DM juices to kind of come up
Recharge.
with a whole bunch of things and recharge. And when it yet again becomes my time to helm, then I'll have some cool ideas to throw out there. And maybe one of these things is it, maybe it's not. But I always like to jot down these ideas to use later on. I run a whole bunch of things by my kids, and sometimes they're like, yeah, that idea sounds like a lot of fun. I had watched a couple of months ago, I watched like the Riddick movie, and you know, Riddick is a badass. He's very much a survivalist,
It's written into his
and
contract. He's got to be.
and I was like, all right, well, like, what if like you ran a survivalist style game where like the players are you know powerful. You put it in like tier 3 kind of level of characters, but like they're dropped with nothing into this essentially like prison dimension, if you will. So like everybody's got to have some kind of badassery about them, but the world is what you make of it, and you can attempt to befriend things, kill things, but you gotta make your way and make your gear and what have you. And I think that would be a lot of fun, but like it would play very heavy on the resource driven aspect, and not everybody is into that.
That is definitely a specific type of a game. And also, some systems just are much better at handling that than others.
Yes,
Yeah.
and with some of the games that you've played recently that deal with resource and survivability, like to me, it's like, all right, well, perhaps I need to learn some of those and see if one of them would wind up working better than a typical D&D scenario.
Yeah, yeah. We actually have some videos coming up on some of those games later where we're talking about them. So keep your eyes out for our Karen discussion, because that's definitely one of those games that really lends itself to playing a survivalist type system or world or campaign. Maximum Apocalypse did a pretty good job as well. I felt like without getting like bogged down in the nitty gritty, and it also like added the elements where you could scavenge and build things from your scavenge, but it didn't make you like you're like, I have a steering wheel, I have 9 volt batteries. It handled it more. I don't know. I want to say generic, but that's not quite the word I'm looking for either. Um, but like when you would scavenge stuff and you'd be able to get salvage. It wasn't specific things. You just had X amount of it, and then you could later try and use it to do stuff. So this way, it kind of left it a little more open ended. If for more narrative and story driven elements, so it wasn't just like you had the MacGyver with whatever weird stuff you had. It was just like, okay, you're able to find stuff, and at some point, you might be able to put them together to use it for something. Which it was. I felt like it was kind of an elegant way of doing it without having to have a mile long inventory list of everything. Like
Correct.
your inventory list shouldn't look like Santa Claus's naughty or nice list. Uh,
When you're the kind of character that likes to pick things up, as little kind of like mementos and that kind of things, like you're already going to have that kind of stuff. So if you also are then tracking loot as well, that makes it, twice as hard. Uh,
yeah. So I'll probably be the next one out of us to run for one of our groups then. So maybe I should be looking at some strange world stuff to do.
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how long before you're back in the seat of the Tuesday night group.
Yeah. Well, so we got the Tuesday night group, but also we're coming on the tail end of our last Saturday of the month group. So
Oh,
we play like D&D every Saturday almost, but well, 3 Saturdays out of the month we play D or well, we play RPGs, but they're like 3 different groups that me and Ted belong to. It's like it's we find it's really difficult to get a group of adults together every week. Only apparently me and Ted are really willing to do that. So we just started multiple groups, and people seem like they can commit to one Saturday a month. So we made that work.
it makes it makes tracking a little bit easier if everybody has to only commit to one. And then Dave and I just was like, all right, well, we've got this group that meets on the second Saturday, and this group that meets on the third Saturday, and this group that meets on the last Saturday. And, we just have our conversations and track things and, figure out, well, what does food look like? And, what does the game look like? And with the second Saturday, like Dave is currently DMing. With the second Saturday, I'm sorry, the third Saturday, I just literally ended the We Live on a Boat campaign, and like one of the other players suggested that, oh well, I'd like to run a Ravenloft game, so I'm completely willing to take over the DM mantle if you want. So that's Volcanic Knight. Carlos is who was in my untraditionally arcane game, this in the Old Guard game that Robin is running, as well as running the Vast Grim game on Tuesdays. So he's all over the place now.
He's
But he's
thoroughly infiltrated.
um, but he's running that. I get to kind of sit back. But the group that we meet on the last Saturday, it's a revolving door, revolving DM, I should say. Um, and we play something that's not D&D. So I know there was talk about that possibly being a Zoo Mafia game. There was talk about some point in time in the future I run a Mutants and Masterminds game, or some other kind of superhero-y thing. So who
It
knows?
it probably will be Zoo Mafia. So so no Strange Worlds there other than the Secret Life of Pets style game. But it's kind of strange. I mean, we've had some weird things happen in our Zoo Mafia games. Like the last 3 or 4 sessions of your campaign became a dating sim somehow. I don't know.
Well, it was longer than that. Like I want to say, like episode 7 and 10 were the dating game. Uh, and I feel I did a decent job with trying to like keep things on track. And heck, I put a fight scene in the middle of date night.
As you do. What's more
Yeah.
romantic than fighting for your life with your loved ones?
But it's a scenario. So sometimes love's got to get shaken up.
For real. All's fair in love and war. On that note, we are just past the 9 o'clock mark. We will be back here Tuesday night playing our Vast Grim game. So if you want to come see what shenanigans and antics we get up to in that game and try and figure out why there are so many Wizard of Oz references, feel free to come back 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.